Welcome. Today we're going to be discussing the technique calming the storm and how to relate it to other techniques in the American Kenpo system. So keep in mind two things. First, this is not a comprehensive list of techniques. And second, it's not a family grouping. What it is just different avenues and ways that you can explore to relate things together in American Kenpo. So let's start out with calming the storm as our base and talk through a very specific element of that technique. In this case, it's going to be that last back knuckle. So if you'll notice, we get through this whole technique, then we do this back knuckle. So that back knuckle is using the power principle of torque, but it's using counter-rotational torque. So counter-rotational torque is a very distinctive type of torque. In this case, it's where the body is moving in one direction and the extremity is moving in the opposite direction. So you would say, well, why? Why are we doing this in calming the storm? It has to do with body alignment. So in this case, if you'll notice, our bodies are almost parallel to one another, and I'm going to hit them with the back knuckle. So what I want to do is turn my body towards, in this case, counterclockwise, the opponent, getting that shoulder closer to the opponent, while the hand now extends also, which means it's going in the opposite circle. In this case, clockwise rather than counterclockwise. So that's one way to do it. There's another way to do it. That would be direct rotational force. So in this case, if we did something like a repeating mace, where we get into here and we do this back knuckle, if you'll notice, my body is now rotating in that clockwise manner, and my hand is rotating in that clockwise manner. Why? Because of the position of the body again. I'm here with the hand across my body, and now I'm rotating all at the same time in the same direction. So now there's another or third form of torque, and that would be isolated torque. So what we're going to do is show you that one. In this case, it's something like a circling destruction. The interesting thing about this is even though it's isolated, it's backed up with the power principle of backup mass. So let's show you how it's being used. In this case, you're coming forward and you're hitting directly forward as you're beginning to settle and moving all that weight forward. So it's isolated, meaning the body rotation isn't helping, but the hand is hitting using that backup mass in the settling. Okay. So there's another way in which you can think about this, where you have different options. In other words, something like a reversing mace. If you look at reversing mace, we're doing that up the circle piece, but down we could either hit in direct rotation or we can hit in counter rotation due to the positioning of our body. Okay, so up to now we've been doing everything on a horizontal, but we can do it one more way. Let's do it on a vertical so that you can see it being used using gravitational marriage rather than backup mass in order to aid that torque. So in this case, something like a thundering hammers, where we get through the entire technique, and we get to here, and what we're going to be doing is back knuckle. Okay, so this could be done any one of those three ways. I could use isolated, where I'm just using the drop of my body. I could use direct rotation, where I'm actually coming towards the opponent, or counter-rotational, where I'm actually going in two different directions at the same time. It's left up to you to employ it however you see fit. So let's move on to a different way of thinking about this. In this case, how we're dealing with that stick. So let's start out with the basic calming the storm. How are we dealing with the stick? So in this case, what we're doing is we're isolating that stick through jamming. So what we're doing is we're making the stick ineffective and then keeping it ineffective through our checks. Okay? We could relate it through securing the storm, which is the exact same way. All we've done is switched our feet, which then changes up the technique. You can do it a third way through the vertical version rather than the horizontal version. That would give us something like an obstructing a storm. So all those deal with it by jamming and isolating the weapon so that it becomes ineffective. Well, we can do the exact opposite of that, and that would be through evasion. In this case, that would bring in something like a checking the storm, or completely moving out of the way, or even evading the storm, where, again, we're moving just now in the opposite direction. So up to now, we've been dealing with it either through jamming or evasion, but we can do a combination of the two. That would bring something like a brushing the storm, where we're actually doing a evasion with the counter, but then the tricky part here is how do we keep this check of this weapon under check? In this case, it's through body positioning. So what I'm doing is I'm making that technique ineffective by controlling the body and making sure that they cannot use that stick. Okay, so kick this up a notch, and let's now check the weapon through a different way. In this case, something like a clipping the storm, where we're actually moving the stick out of the way and then trying to clear it out of their hands, completely eliminate it from the situation. And let's kick it up one more. In other words, do a different degrees of or different end of the spectrum. This would be something like capturing the storm, where we actually are taking the weapon from the opponent and then using it against them. Up. So a quick review, how did we relate this technique? We did it through how we're dealing with the stick, and then we're dealing with it through that back knuckle. Hope this video helps you understand the American Kenpo system just a little bit better. Thank you very much.